This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for Sports Files is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Today on Sports Files, we look ahead to the postseason chances for the Memphis Tigers basketball team and do so with a panel of experts: Jason Smith, John Martin, and Eli Savoy. As you watch today's edition of Sports Files, you do so knowing the Memphis Tigers are in the midst of the Conference USA tournament in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Just this past Saturday, the Tigers completed a perfect 16-0 mark in Conference USA play, capturing their 8th conference championship. The Tigers will also be looking to take down their 7th CUSA tournament title in the past 8 years, and with it, garner the automatic spot in the Big Dance. There is no question putting together a 27-4 regular season record and perfection in the league is impressive. But how impressive? Will Tigers fans be happy with a stellar regular season and failure in the NCAA tournament? Hard to believe they will if you accept Memphis as a national program, which I believe they are. Today we toss around all types of Tigers topics with 3 guys who know the team well: Jason Smith and John Martin from the Commercial Appeal, and my radio partner on Sports 56 and FM 87.7, Eli Savoy. It's Tigers Talk panel style next on Sports Files. All right, let's meet the panel. Let's start to my left from the Commercial Appeal. He's the recruiting reporter with an emphasis on the University of Memphis, John Martin. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me.
To my right, co-host of the Midday Show. I know him pretty well. Sports 56 and FM 87.7. Also the program director, Eli Savoy, with us today. Hello, Eli.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me.
And he is the Memphis Tigers beat writer for the Commercial Appeal, Jason Smith. Good to see you, Jason.
Thanks for having me, sir.
All right, quick question to start it off. Fill in the blank. The Tigers not winning the Conference USA tournament would be, Jason, let me start with you.
It'd certainly be disappointing, but I think at this point they're in. It'd be more than disappointing. Obviously, there's this fan base that go nuts as they do after any loss, but I think they're in at this point. Even with a loss in the quarterfinals, I think with the amount of wins, the 27 wins that they're in, but I certainly don't expect them to be in that position. I believe they're too good for anybody in this conference.
Eli, you said on your radio show they would go undefeated. So far, that's the case. Will they finish undefeated? And if they lose, what would that mean?
If they lose in the conference tournament, it would be shocking. They're just better than everybody in this conference. Mm-hmm. I don't see on a neutral court, or even if they were to play Tulsa on their home floor, I don't see how anybody's going to be able to beat them. They ran through the conference tournament last year in easy fashion. That was at home. But even going to Tulsa, I don't see anybody being able to beat them in that setting. All
right, John, not winning the Conference USA tournament for Memphis would be?
Unsettling. Because it's like Eli said, I mean, when they were on that 18-game winning streak, they were running through teams. They were sharing the ball like they've never shared the ball under Josh Pastner. So I think that if they were to lose in this tournament, I know that there are other teams who really need to win, like Southern Miss, to get in. But I'd like to see that kind of intensity and focus from this team going into the tournament. So I think if they don't have it, if they drop it, it would be unsettling for me.
Does rolling through the Conference USA tournament, rolling through the Conference USA season, give Memphis some sort of false sense of security, that things come too easy for them, and perhaps when they play tougher competition, they take them a little bit for granted? Is there that sense of false security? Jason?
I guess you could bring that point up, certainly with the way that you saw them come out against Xavier. I mean, they dominated up their conference opponents as they come out against Xavier, and they totally let Xavier dictate the pace early on. They're not doing what they've been coached to do in terms of fronting the post. They're playing behind. They looked a mess, quite frankly, in the first half. And maybe they do. Maybe you get a little settled. Maybe you get a little complacent. But I do think that loss, if they'd won straight through, then maybe, they go in a little complacent in the tournament. But I do think that loss has kind of reset them.
Eli, do you buy into that? A loss can help you?
No, I can see what you're saying, yeah, at times. And I think if you're going to get complacent, I think that's going to happen in the regular season. I think once you get into the tournament, you understand that to play the next day, we have to win, and there's something more in line. I see when you're running through a conference, killing everybody, that maybe once you get to a point and towards the end of the regular season, it can kind of get boring, for lack of a better word. Tournament time starts up. I think you reset and say, this is what we play for. This is whether it's conference tournament, NCAA tournament. You know, you lose, you're done for whatever that tournament is. So I think you step it up. Plus, I think the all-conference teams that came out and the Tigers were probably a little bit slighted, puts a little bit of a chip on their shoulder going into the conference tournament too. That gives them a little motivation, that maybe a little extra motivation than they had before.
All right, let's bring that up. This week, Conference USA all-tournament teams, not all-tournament, but the Conference USA all CUSA teams were announced. The Tigers get 1 on the first team with Joe Jackson. There were 6 actually named to the first team, 5 to the second. Tigers get nobody on the second team. So one of the top 11 players is from Memphis. They get 3 on the third team with Adonis Thomas, Jaron Johnson, and DJ Steffens. John, let me start with you. Is that fair? Does Memphis deserve more on that first team?
Well, yeah, probably, because, I mean, they are far and away the best team in Conference USA, so logic would say that they deserve more players on the first and second teams than the rest of the conference. Now, I think with this, I don't know exactly how the voting works, but I think the balance of Memphis may have hurt individual guys getting on the first and second teams, because you look at a guy like DJ Steffens, for example, who made the third team. Numbers not great, but he most valuable player on the team, but his numbers aren't great. Jaron Johnson numbers aren't great. Nobody really, when you look at the stats, nobody really jumps out at you other than really Joe Jackson, and he was their number 1 guy, they're on their first team. So I think they're probably being penalized because they have so much balance, and that it can be any given guy on a night. But certainly you could make a case that there was some slight here.
I can buy the balance, but also let me bring up a bias. Is there a bias? Because you don't have the league voting here. You have members of each city with the media that are voting. So do you think some other media members can, Memphis, good riddance, let's get rid of them, you think that's even possible?
I think it's possible. I mean, I participated in the weekly voting this year, and I think only Jaron and Joe Jackson were weekly players of the week. And I do think it goes back to what John says. Not a lot of the voters, they look at numbers. They look at, and if Akeem Richmond scored, averaged 29.5, and Joe Jackson only averaged 15, they're usually going with Akeem Richmond, whether that's right or wrong. Even with the way that Memphis plays, I find it wrong. I think you've got to go, when teams are winning, you reward those players. Balance is obviously, if Joe doesn't win Player of the Year, I think it'll be balance that killed him. Right. But you look at his efficiency numbers, the way he shot the ball, I certainly think he's deserving. But yeah, you might have some of that, no question. When you're talking about media guys, they're human beings. So yeah, there could be bias.
Go ahead.
And that's the thing. They see Memphis once, maybe twice a year. So yeah, they just sit down and go, all right, let's look at numbers. He averaged how many points, how many rebounds. And I think DJ's the one that gets hurt. If you watch the Tigers play and you see them regularly, like we do, you understand what DJ Steffens does on the court and what the level he plays at. I mean, his efficiency numbers are great. He just doesn't shoot that much because he doesn't play that many minutes. But what he does defensively and the energy, if you saw the Tigers play regularly, I think most of those people would vote him first team. Yeah.
I don't want to go really in depth on this because by the time people see this, the voting has already taken place, the announcement's already taken place. But will it be shocking if Jackson's not the player of the year and if Pastor's not the coach of the year? John?
I think it will be shocking if the Tigers don't sweep player of the year, coach of the year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Sixth Man of the Year. I think Chris Crawford's a deserving Sixth Man of the Year. I mean, you think about it. He hit, I don't know, he's been on fire the last month and a half for Memphis. Won them at Southern Miss, won them that game. DJ Steffens averaging over 2 blocks a game. That's unheard of. And Josh Pastner, the job he's done after starting out, with 3-2, I think the way he's rolled through this thing, I think it would be a massive upset if anybody else other than Josh won.
And that's the coaches, right? The coaches are voting for these awards as opposed to the media?
Well, coaches and media combine on all of these awards. The coaches and it's a coaches media combine.
So what do you think? Would you agree?
I would have to think that the 16-0 team is going to, the best player on the 16-0 team should be your player of the year, unless somebody was averaging 30 and 10 or something like that. But the team that goes 16-0 and completely dominates the conference, they should have the player of the year. The coach of the year, in all likelihood, is going to come from that team. DJ certainly for Defensive Player of the Year. And I think, yeah, Chris, you could certainly make the case for Sixth Man of the Year.
Jason, if Pastner doesn't win it this year, he's never going to win it.
No question about it. I'd be shocked if Pastner doesn't win Coach of the Year. Now I've seen it already. You know, NBCSports.com's picked Donnie Tyndall. I've seen a couple other outlets pick Donnie Tyndall, the Southern Miss coach, as their Coach of the Year. I guess, you know, his first season there, he won 20 games. He did it basically with a new roster. You know, Eustachy won it last year over Josh. If Pastner lost again this year, I would be shocked. Won't be shocked if Joe doesn't get Player of the Year just because the numbers don't jump off at you. And like I've said, some of these voters, they go crazy on numbers. NBC Sports picked Keith Clanton as the Player of the Year. I don't know how you do that. He was second team today on the all-conference team. But I'm with Eli. I tend to vote best player on best team, and I think that's obviously been Joe Jackson.
All right, let's fast forward to the all-important seeding for the NCAA tournament, which certainly stirs up a lot of controversy in this area. Josh recently, after winning Saturday in the regular season finale, said his team should be a 5, at least at that point. You look at the bracketology, you see anywhere from 7 to 8 to 9. Some even have it as a 10. Where should Memphis be seated, Eli?
I would say going into the conference tournament, they're around an 8. If you win the conference tournament like they should, I think there's a chance you get to 7, but it depends a lot on what you're competing with a lot of teams, and it depends what they do in their conference tournament. It would, to me, be take a lot of help to get to a 6, but I think a 7 certainly is doable. Jason?
I think they blew their shot at a 5 or 6 when they lost to Xavier. I think Lenardi's got them at a 7 right now. I tend to think that's kind of where it is and where it'll end up. I guess there's a possibility, since Lenardi's got them at 7 now, that they could get to a 6 if they won out. But I'm with Eli. I kind of think 7's the ceiling right now.
John?
I don't think they can do a lot more for themselves in this conference tournament.
I agree.
You never know really who they're going to match up with. I think they are probably locked in, which I think is a 7. I think that's probably going to be their best case scenario. You know, you look at the Xavier loss. It's not that bad. You know, it's not really a bad loss because Xavier obviously beat St. Louis at home right after Memphis and almost beat Butler at Butler this weekend. So Xavier is a very capable team. They got their point guard back. So I don't think that's going to be kind of striked against them as a bad loss. But they don't have any good wins, and good luck convincing the committee that a win in CUSA is a good one.
Well, the key to in the CUSA tournament is kind of what Southern Miss does. If you were to get Southern Miss in the championship game and beat them, that's another top 50 win. That becomes 3 top 50 wins. If Southern Miss were to lose early, maybe their first game, they might fall out of the top 50, and then you have 0 top 50 wins because that's the only team in the top 50 you've beaten. So Southern Miss determines a lot about their resume in that room on that Sunday.
And I don't think Southern Miss, out how Southern Miss is the top 50, but that's another story.
And they lost to Marshall. You know, they lost to Marshall not too long ago, like a week ago. So I don't know. I don't even know at this point what a win against Southern Miss does for you. You've already beat them twice. I just don't think they can really help themselves any more than they already have.
Jason, how does this team compare to last year?
Well, if you look at the efficiency numbers, not quite as good. I mean, they were a little bit better defensively, particularly. But I think the eye test. I think if you look at them, you look at their balance, and you look at just the chemistry. These guys like each other, and that's you know, you can't say enough. We said that going into the season. That would be a difference for this team. Last year's team was Will Barton and the rest of the guys. And when Will Barton was struggling against St. Louis, the rest of the guys say, hey, give us a shot here, give us a chance. And that's why you saw things boil over with him and Chris Crawford. This team's together, and I'm not saying that you can't have some of that when things go bad. You start to see things get ugly, but I just don't think you'll see anything like that. And I think the chemistry, I think that's what Josh has done the best job of. All that talent, he's gotten it to play together and be one this year. And I think that's going to be the difference for them.
And I would think, Eli, that you would agree that there's a lot of different guys who could beat you with this year's team with the addition of Jaren Johnson. And Shaq's not had the season, the last month has not been what he started out with, hit kind of that freshman wall, but he's certainly capable in a game. So weapon-wise, they have more talent, don't they?
Yeah, we talk about the balance that hurt him in the voting. Yeah, there's no doubt. We've seen it all year long that there's any one of 5, 6 guys on a given night can be the guy that carries this team. And comparing it to last year, I just think the improvement of Joe Jackson and DJ Steffens, and then you add in Jaren Johnson as a newcomer, well, I have to think this team's, I know what the numbers say, but just like you said, the eye test, I think this team just looks better than last year's team.
John, you can't use the excuse of being young. You can't use the excuse of not having chemistry. They have leadership. I mean, they seem to have it all going into the postseason.
They have all the pieces now, and you're right, there's no more crutch. I think last year's team, no question, had the better individual player. But as a unit, this team is far and away better, and that's obvious from what they've been able to do. I think the fact that you mentioned it can be Chris Crawford, it can be Jaren, it could be Joe, and then you add in a guy like Shaq Goodwin, another capable big. They have a lot of front court depth they really didn't have. They had Wesley Witherspoon as their third big last year. So I think with a guy like that, I know he struggled, but the fact you got Shaq, you add in dynamic Jaren Johnson, I mean, I think this team is far more potent, and I think they'll do a lot more damage in the tournament than last year's team did.
Who's the MVP of this team, Jason?
Joe Jackson, no question.
John?
DJ Steffens.
Eli?
It's tough between those two. I think DJ Steffens is more valuable. Joe's the better player, but I think DJ is more valuable to this team. And it's funny, out of all that, we didn't even mention Adonis Thomas, who was supposed to be the NBA prospect coming into this year.
It is amazing.
3 wins away from 30. You would think they will get it this week here in Tulsa. Can the team be labeled as a success if they lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament with 30 wins under their belt in the regular season and the conference tournament? Jason?
You know what Josh Pastner would say? He'd say yes. He'd say you don't take those things for granted. Regular season titles going 16-0, but no. I mean, I'm with everyone else that it won't matter if you went 16-0 in conference if you don't win that first tournament game. This city is hell bent on it. The program's hell bent on it. Josh has got to win the big one, and if he doesn't, he'll be judged on that, and people will deem it a failure.
Eli?
I think they have to win too. I think to be a success, I think you got to get to the Sweet 16. Being 4 years in, if you get to the final 32, okay, you were a top 20 preseason team. You didn't beat anybody of note during the regular season. If you're a 7 and you beat a 10 in the first round and then you lose in the second round, I guess you could call it, at least he got the monkey off his back winning a tournament game. But I just look at this roster. I believe this is a Sweet 16 roster.
I agree with you, but does it sting more now that they're back in the polls? They're 17 and 20, respectively, coaches and writers. Does it sting more if they go out in the first round knowing that they're in the polls right now? I know last year they were at the beginning of the season, then fell out. How do people judge them if they're a top 25 team and they bail out in the first round?
Well, they're certainly more exposed now that they're in the top 25, so I think they'll obviously have a lot more attention on them. You say Sweet 16. I have a hard time putting the Sweet 16 burden on them because it's all about matchups in this tournament, and you never know what's going to happen, who you're going to draw. I think Josh Pastner just needs to show the fan base at large that he can win a tournament game, because that's the main strike against him right now, is that he can't win a tournament game. If you do that, you never know, depending on the draw. I just think if he does that, he'll be able to alleviate most of the doubt. Not all of it, but I think a large part of it, especially with
most of the weights lifted with one win?
I think one win in tournament does it. Plus, with that class he's got coming in, you'd like to think they've got a good chemistry about him already coming in. So I think if he wins one game, I think he'll have alleviated a lot of it. Not all of it, but a lot of it.
And, of course, if they're in the 8-9 game, they would have to beat a number one to get to the Sweet 16. Who's the most important player? I asked you for the MVP, but who's the most important player to make a big run in the NCAA tournament? Eli?
That I would say Joe. Joe's going to have to be good, really good, I think. So if you're good, because that second game, you're going to be playing a team better than you. Whether 7, 8, whatever, you're probably, unless a big upset happens, you're going to be playing a team better than you in that second round. Mm-hmm. Joe's going to have to be terrific, I think, to beat somebody better than them.
I keep hearing that they're going to need one of those bigs to come through, especially against a bigger team. Does that put the pressure more on an Adonis or a Shaq, or do you agree with Eli?
That's my concern going into the tournament, is what they're getting, the production they're getting right now from their bigs. They're not getting much, and Josh is right. They started off the season well, and it was the guards that were inconsistent. The guards have leveled out. They're now leading the team, and you're not getting much for your bigs now. Keep in mind, you've got to make sure you get those guys opportunities. But to be different from Eli, number one, and I think this is the guy. It's Adonis Thomas. I mean, this is a kid who, in the month of February, played pretty well. He was up around those, 16, 15-point numbers, averaging 8, 9 rebounds. If he can get to that player again, that gives them an entirely different dimension, and you're not leaving all the heavy lifting to your guards. That's what they've got to get the big guys rolling. I think Adonis is right there.
John?
First of all, I have completely lost faith in Adonis Thomas. Completely.
Yeah. Like, he doesn't even come across your mind in answering that question.
I thought maybe obviously when he had the big month of February, for whatever reason he has regressed. He had 0 rebounds against UAB. 0 rebounds. I think the player I would look at, and he's kind of been there and kind of not this month, is Jaren Johnson. Obviously he's had some struggles. Being a JUCO guy, there is an adjustment, but he is instant offense, instant defense. He has this thing about him that I don't think anybody else on the team has. It's like this urge, this drive. I think they've got to have him at a high level because I think the better he's playing, I think he lifts the team. Yeah. And I think that he can take them as far as his talent dictates. So I think Jaren Johnson is the guy that I would want to be the best player in the tournament. I want Jaren Johnson to be at the highest level.
Jason, grade Josh Pastner through his almost 4 now completed seasons at Memphis.
Whew, good one. I don't think you can give him an A because he hasn't won the big one. He has not beat a ranked opponent. He hasn't won that NCAA tournament. I'd be hard-pressed to give him a C, though. I think with the going 16-0, now you've won 2 straight regular season titles, you've won 2 CUSA tournaments. I'll go B, B minus.
B for Josh. Eli?
I think what he's done, I would say what he's done is so far has been average because he doesn't have those wins. I would have to say a C until he wins a tournament game or beats somebody of note.
John?
I give him a B. I give him a B because he came in 2009, obviously did a great job with that team. Last 2 seasons, maybe you can argue that he underachieved. But to go 16-0 in any conference, I think is remarkable. I don't think that should be written off. And I think you also add in his recruiting and the fact that, a lot of people have given him crap about his staffs in the past. He's assembled a pretty good staff here. So you taking all that into consideration under the circumstances, I give Josh Pastner a solid B.
I would say on recruiting, I'd give him an A. But if we're taking the recruiting side out of it,
it's all part of it. Running a program.
His coaching, I would say C.
All right, speaking of recruiting, we don't have a lot of time, but John, let me ask you this because that's your forte.
It is indeed.
Of the players coming in, 5 that'll get scholarships, a walk-on and Sam Kraft. Mm-hmm. Which 2 of those 6 will make an impact next year?
I have said this from day one.
Saying on this one.
And I know Jason agrees with me. The 2 guys I expect to make the biggest impact day one are Austin Nichols from Briarcrest and Nick King from East High School. Austin, we've talked ad nauseum about it. He gives you an element that I don't know if we remember ever seeing at Memphis. I don't know how he fits in, but I'm really interested to see how because Joe Francisco from ESPN.com called him the most skilled big man in the country, the whole country. And I think he gives them, with his passing, his ability to finish at the rim, the way he runs the floor. I don't think Memphis has that. And then you look at a guy like Nick King, not afraid to stick his nose in there, as Jason well knows, gets the rebounds and can step out, face up 4 type, can play the 3 as well. I think those guys come in, and there's going to be minutes at the 3 spot. So I think Nick King and Austin Nichols come in from day one and make a sizable impact for Memphis.
All right, final minute, and this is tough, guys, because we don't know the matchups as we do this interview. We don't know where Memphis is going, who they're playing against. And you've already gave us your prediction on what they need to do. Eli, you said Sweet 16. What do you think they will do?
I think they'll win 1 game in the NCAA tournament. I think they'll lose in the second, third round. I refuse to call it third round. The second round of the tournament. I think they lose their second tournament game. Because it's going to be against somebody really good.
But I think, and we go back to what John said, I think it's very important he gets that 1 win. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to get off his back. Jason?
I'm going to go 2, just because, like we said, that this on any given night, there's 5, 6 guys that can step up. I think their depth will help them. Yes, they're going to face someone good if they get past that first one. I think it's key that he gets that first one. I agree. Then I don't think it's a failure. But I got a feeling they're going to make it to the 16.
And John, real quick.
I say 1 and done with a caveat. I think they have the talent to make a legitimate run, and that's going to depend on their opponent and matchups. Because as we know, if they play a team that likes to slow it down and muck it up, they can really struggle. I think they will get 1. I think they have the talent to get more, but if I had to say today, I think they're 1 and done.
Well, we know the fans of Memphis will be glued to their TV. Many will be making the trip wherever the Memphis Tigers go. Of course, they're very important to this city. And you guys, thank you so much for your expertise. John Martin, Jason Smith, and Eli Savoy. Thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Enjoy the NCAA tournament. We'll take a break. When we come back, it's overtime. Stay with us. Okay, you heard from the panel. Now let me give you my thoughts on the Tigers. Saying this is an important postseason for Tigers coach Josh Pastner would be a huge understatement. And don't get me wrong, I by no means am talking about job security. Josh needs a win to get the albatross off his back and to quiet the critics. This is a good Memphis basketball team, but beating up on Conference USA opponents is not going to win me over. This team has McDonald's All-Americans and top recruits up and down the lineup. Now they need to show that they are as good as other teams with similar talent. Last year, the Tigers had a good team led by a future NBA guard, Will Barton. but they lost in their NCAA tourney opener to St. Louis. This is year 4 for Pastner, and winning a game is not too much to ask. The Tigers are ranked, experienced, and talented. There is no reason why they can't be a bad matchup for their opponent, as opposed to vice versa. I also believe Pastner has matured as a head coach and is getting better with each passing season. With that said, I think the Tigers will be in a similar boat as they were last season and be seated in the 8-9 range. Now, what a difference it could have been if they had beaten just one of the few quality opponents they played, such as Louisville or VCU. Actually, their win over Tennessee ends up being one of their biggest victories, and ironically, it's a series that, if Josh had his way, would cease to exist. For the record, I think this team is better than last year's and is mentally and physically tougher. Plus, there's more experience. I would be surprised if the Tigers don't get their first NCAA tournament win under Coach Josh Pastner. And that'll do it for this week's show. Remember, there's more action from the TSSAA State Basketball Championships tomorrow right here on WKNO. We congratulate the Union City girls. They went to the Class A championship but fell a little short, losing to Jackson County 48-35. And if you haven't heard by now, we're moving Sports Files to Thursdays at 8:30 starting next week. So make sure you pass the word around about our new day and time for Sports Files. Of course, you can see any of our past shows by heading to our website at WKNO.org and clicking on KNO Tonight. And we'll see you next time.